Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is now 10 o'clock, and I'd like to welcome you all to this select committee meeting on public infrastructure and the Minister in the Presidency. Today, the 6th of November, we are going to today consider the annual report of the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure and some of their selected entities, the CIDB and the PMTE, I believe. I think we have quite a long presentation, so I don't want to delay it by saying too much from the outset. We will allow the department to do presentations from, let's say, if we get through the introductions, say from 10:15 to 11:15, so an hour, if that's in order. And then I'd like to leave approximately an hour and a bit for our committee members to pose questions. And then we'll just have to do a bit of administrative work by adopting the minutes of the previous meeting. But from my side, you are all very welcome. Thank you so much for attending, and welcome to the committee members. Those of you that are here, there's some by-elections happening, and some of our committee members are there, and some of our committee members are overseas, so that's why we look a little bit thin on the ground. But I will let Mr. Ntalini just go through the apologies quickly. Thank you very much, Ntalini.
Thank you, Chairperson, and good morning, honorable members and the department and colleagues and everyone present. The apologies that we have received are as follows. We have received an apology from Honorable Briet. She's attending the Social Services Committee. We also received an apology from Honorable Mabebo, who is in hospital. Apology from Honorable Peter, who is overseas. An apology from Honorable Molokome, who is attending other parliamentary business in Limpopo, and also an apology for Honorable Kaiser, who's not feeling well. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. We note those apologies. I'd like to just give our committee's best wishes to Honorable Mabebu. He's currently still in hospital, and we wish him a speedy recovery. I have asked for an update. I haven't received one yet, so I will pass on any updates that I get to the committee members as soon as I get them. Welcome, Chief Whip. Good to see you here. Yeah, I'd like to maybe get welcome to my staff. Welcome, Dr. Clark. Welcome, Soliswa. Thank you very much. Yolisa, thank you very much. And Mr. Ntalini, thank you very much for everything. Right, Mr. Ndakani, would you like to, DG, introduce your team? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, honorable members, the staff of Parliament, and the committee. Chairperson, we have 3 clusters of people from Public Works. Let me just start with our entities. Chairperson, we have IDT, which is represented by a board member, Tokyo Nevondwe. Tokyo, just raise your hand so that members can see who you are. And then there is Mr. Londoloza Songwevu, who's the CEO of Parties acting as the CEO. Mr. Thank you. And then also, Chair, we have the team from CIDB, which is led by the chairperson, or Mr. Kulile Nzo. Mr. Nzo, just raise your hand so that members can see you. There's also a CEO of CIDB, Mr. Bongan Dladla. And then there's also a CFO for CIDB, Mr. Sfison Sibande. And then there's Ibrahim Mullah, the head of continuous improvement from CIDB, Mr. Mullah. Thank you very much. And then lastly, from the department chair, obviously myself leading the team. With me on my left is the head of PMTE, Mr. Caesar Sibande. There is Ms. Nyeleti Mtetwa. She's a DDG, Real Estate. Nyeleti. there is Mr. Lovwani Ndo, who's a DDG Policy Ndo. And then there's also Mr. Adam Mtombeni, who's the DDG IGR, Intergovernmental Relations. And there's Lwazi Mahlangu, who's just been chairperson recently confirmed by Cabinet as the DDG in charge of governance, risk and compliance. Lwazi? Yeah, and then there's Miss Carmen Abrahams. She's DDG Professional Services, also acting as DDG Corporate Services. Carmen. That will be the team. And then lastly, Mr. Mpo Mashaba, who's Director Entities, Mpo, under us. Yeah, thank you. That will be the team chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DG. My committee that we are now all in the house that are here today, so I'd like my committee members to just introduce themselves. Maybe we can start with Chief Whip.
Thank you, Chair Baron Host, Christians, yourself, and the top table man next to you and the management team. My name is Kenny Muimang, a member of the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Greeting to everyone. I'm Mandi Samakesini from Free State. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and honorable members and colleagues led by DG. I'm Olis Kawunda from KZN. Don't ask for my passport if you hear my surname. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jablan Zimande from Gauteng. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Igor Skierkogel from the Free State.
Thank you very much, Dr. Skierkogel. Let me continue before you say something. In the introductions, you would have noticed that my name is Rikus Bardner from the Western Cape, in case you didn't know, that my team introduced themselves with their names and where they are from, but they didn't mention their political affiliations. Because in this committee, political affiliations doesn't mean much. What matters here is what we do as members of parliament in our oversight role. And so we are not here to be your enemy. We are here to see what work you've done and to ask hopefully probing questions to assist you in doing your work better. So I would like you to take the questions that you are being asked in DG in that spirit today. Thank you very, very much. I just also would like to mention that I did receive a formal letter of apology from the Minister, Dean McPherson, and the Deputy Minister. They are engaged in KwaZulu-Natal today in business that couldn't be released from. So that's why they are not here. Welcome, sir. DG, let's go ahead. Who's starting with the presentations? Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much. Chairperson, the way we've structured it, we're going to allow Lwazi to do the non-performance information annual report presentation for us, and then the CFO will then deal with the financials. And then, Chair, I know that the time given to us in terms of the agenda is very short, but we'll try to squeeze between ourselves and also allow CIDB to also present theirs through the CEO, so that at least we then can then deal with those issues. And then if the chair wants to add anything around ITT, they are here in the event the members want to engage them, but they won't be presenting, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. We have a plenary at 2 o'clock. That's why we're limited for time. But let's see how we go. Thank you very much.
Thank you, DG. Honorable Chairperson, members of the committee, DG and colleagues from the department and entities and parliamentary staff, good morning. Chair and members, I'll take you through quickly non-financial. Our presentation is basically structured into two parts: main vote, which is the departmental main vote allocation from Treasury, and then also the property management trading entity, which basically focuses on our management of properties. The department, again, in terms of the structure of program structure, the main vote has got five programs, administration, which would also talk to KPIs that relate to administration, intergovernmental coordination, program 2, program 3, expanded public works, program 4, property and construction, industry policy research, and then the prestige portfolio that we'll also discuss, and then also into the PMTE, we also have the administration part of it, largely financials, and then your real estate investment services, program 3, construction project management, 4, real estate management services, 5, real estate information registry and services, and 6, facilities management. But in terms of the annual report, you'll see that because we've got a consolidated annual report, which is one annual report for both entities, main vote and PMTE, you'll find that the structure of the programs, they go from 1 up until 11. So which means that program 1 from PMTE in the annual report becomes program 6, and then 7 up to that because of that consolidation. In terms of highlights, which you'll find, the annual report is basically 6 chapters. Chapter 1, which is the introduction, and the basic information, general information about the public works, what we have achieved. Chapter 2 of the annual report is performance information, which relates to all the KPIs as detailed in the annual performance plans. And then chapter 3 is governance issues, risk, and also also giving information around the recommendations and resolutions taken in the portfolio committees and also select committees and other areas, including the audit committee statement, which is also reflected in chapter 3. Chapter 4 is split into 2 parts. Part A is the main vote HR tables, and then part B would be the HR PMTE tables, PMT. Then chapter 4 will be Chapter 5 will be the what you call now, there's a new chapter that we've added as guided by National Treasury, where we also report irregular expenditure, which will also be reflected from the financials as well. And then the last chapter, which is chapter 6, is also split into 2. Chapter 6 is also split into 2 parts. Part A, the main vote, annual financial statements, and then the part B is also the financials. Now, this is a high-level performance in terms of what we're picking as critical areas or basic achievement. We're managing a large portfolio, and also we release land letters, land for socio-economic. We release land to social development, especially. And then human settlements, agriculture. So what we measure as a department is the hectarage or the hectares that we release for these socio-economic initiatives. So in the financial year that we just concluded, we released 109.6648 hectares of land to also facilitate. When we talk about human settlements, they deal through the for them to be able to deal with the issues of human settlements. Agriculture to deal with the issues of land claims, so that they also assist in terms of contribution to the land reform, and then also to ESCOM for transmission lines. We also assist in release of those land and other donations as well. In terms of EPWP, we managed to disperse 403 million, which was an integrated grant that was transferred to eligible provincial departments. That is contained in chapter 2. There are tables and the spread in terms of geographical spread as well as the sectors. And then we spent about 96% of that from the entities, which amounts to 387 million. And then we also looked at the budget for the department, in this case main vote, which was 8 billion, and we spent that amount, which basically compared to the previous financial year from an appropriation point of view was more, it was an increase of 3.1 compared to the previous financial year. And then when it comes to infrastructure, which is now driven by Infrastructure South Africa through the SIPs, Strategic Integrated Projects, we also had a value of 304 billion increase from July 2020, which was basically the gazetting of the 18 SIPs, and we've seen an increase to about 540 billion in terms of its investment value. And then On maintenance, which is also the core of, given the large portfolio that we have, we spend about 2.9 billion on maintenance, and I think there are indicators that reflect that. What exactly do we do around maintenance? And then on the client departments, user departments that we manage a portfolio of 52 client departments, which basically is also guided by the what you call the custodian asset management plans, where we also assist in terms of meeting their requirements or their needs for office accommodation. And then in terms of infrastructure, this is your construction project management. We've the total of 82 projects out of 106 that were targeted for the year, which translates to 77% of the completed infrastructure projects. And then in terms of the main vote, from an audit opinion, we have a unqualified audit opinion on the main vote, but unfortunately with a qualified audit opinion on the PMTE financials, and we'll explain the details of what gave rise to the qualification. Right, and then the last basically is the extent of our 5 performance information. We have a total of 41 key performance indicators that we're managing. We're sitting at 21 that were achieved. And our achievement level basically is we've set a higher target. We don't operate on the 25% interval. So our highest is basically anything above 90%, up to 110% will be regarded as target close to that achievement. And anything above 110, and we do an assessment and evaluate whether there's an under-targeting or there were other elements that we, or initiatives that were initiated to improve the level of performance. So that's how we measure our performance, but we're sitting at 51% achievement of those targets, which means that targets that are above targets that are above 90% against the target. Now, the color coding, we use a color coding, which basically explains the color coding 90% and above, which is green, the target that is achieved. And then we have 2 areas, 50% to 89%, which is targets partially achieved. And this is more about the activities and partially some targets that have been achieved in terms of deliverables. And then the orange or amber and the red basically are what we call the targets not achieved. Level 2, which is 11 to 49%. Those are mainly, you would find that the deviations from the reasons for non-performance are related to the processes and activities that then drive the level of performance. And target not achieved at 0 to 10% are largely an input driven. So when you look at that from an M&E system point of view, green will be targets, will be outputs, and then amber would be outputs plus input plus activities, yellow, and then amber would be activities, and then the red will be input. So that when we look at it from a deviation or from programs to improve performance, we look at what then is required to improve performance. I'll start with program 1 quickly, Chair. Program 1 has the following programs within program 1, the following units. It's governance, risk and compliance, which basically measures the perception rate in terms of fraud and corruption. There's a basket of 7 categories that we're measuring from reported areas of corruption, but also looking at issues around ethics and integrity, as well as what you call abuse of power or abuse of power. We also look at that measure. Now, we are sitting at 21.85% against our target range of 20 to 40%. Now, this is an inverse performance when you look at it, because the lower the rate, which basically means that closer to 0, then we're basically perceived as not that greatly in terms of fraud and corruption in those 7 categories, but closer to 100, it means that they were highly perceived as a corrupt organization. But then we also look at out of those 7 categories, what are those elements that we need to then start improve on in the organization. So that's basically the only indicator that should be looked in from that investment. The rest should be moving towards 100%, which basically is a positive relation. Then the second one is the compliance rate. If you look at the structure of the annual performance plans, the first few chapters, or the first chapter of the annual, there's a total of 46 legislative, constitutional, as well as internal policies. So that basket of 46 compliance issues, we also measure it. However, We manage our, from that 46, we took the top 20, which also includes, Chair, how efficient are we in paying suppliers within the 30-day period to ensure that we keep that flow from a cash flow perspective, particularly from the service providers. So we measure the top 20. We are sitting at 84 against 100%. So all the 20 areas are calculated against 100%. So our compliance is 100%, and we want to move towards that, but we're sitting at 84%. The major issues are largely on labor relations, where you find that there's a rule of thumb that cases must be concluded, disciplinary cases must be concluded within 90 days. However, we do find cases going beyond a year, owing to the changes in the commission and also those that are affected sometimes do not even sit in those cases, so it prolongs that. So that's one of the areas that has actually brought down the marginal differences in terms of the compliance rate. But another issue that we're also what we're also looking at is the issues of how we manage findings from the Auditor General, compliance to actually responding to those and addressing those findings, which is also embedded in our audit action plan. So we're sitting at 84%. Performance I've already raised, that is 51%. We also measure that. And then the percentage performance in terms of financial is 16 at 99% financial expenditure. And then in terms of vacancy rate, we're at a target of 10%. We achieved 11%. We're just over by a percentage point in terms of vacancies. But one of the challenges that we face is that when there's a change in administration or a change in leadership, there's often a moratorium placed to allow for that change to actually understand the capacity that would be required. So that then tends to prolong the advertisement up to the appointment, because that also affects the construction of the panels, which means that there also needs to change. So it then prolongs the process, but that's one of the issues that we actually experience in terms of that. Then within the vacancy rate, we also disaggregate this information in terms of designated groups, particularly focusing on women in senior management services, which we're basically sitting at 40.7 against a 48% target. Our intention is to move beyond 50% in women in SMS. And then with that as well is to look at persons with disabilities, a target of 3%, which is a national target. We are sitting at 1.1% in terms of that. One of the challenges what we pick is basically the suitability of the work that is being required in relation to the persons with disabilities. But the initiatives that are come through is to ring-fence those positions so that we also improve the appointments of persons with disabilities, and also ring-fence certain positions so that we improve also the women in senior management positions. And then the last two, which represents corporate services as well under the digitization and automation space, moving into the 4IR space. You've got two indicators where we're also looking at automation as well as digitization. In terms of automation, Chair, we're sitting at 20% of the quantum of the modules that we are looking at automating in the organization, moving from a paper-based process to automation. And we've seen that our subsistence and travel claims system is now automated, not fully automated, but it's at least then we've got the lease property management, although we're still experiencing some delays in approving the business case, as well as the lease portal, which is basically the core business of how we digitize the e-leave, the lease portal and the e-leave system that has actually been automated as well, moving away from the paper. Then the one on the solutions for digitization, we did put a project on hold where we've requested the assistance of CETA to do an integrated assessment of our systems in the organization, because we've got a number of systems and most are not even integrated or interlinked to actually have that seamless flow in terms of the processes. So we've put that project on hold owing to the finalization of the assessment that will be done by CETA. I think we do have a first report. We're still engaging CETA in terms of that. That will also inform our next approach in terms of the full scope of digitization or the digital transformation within the organization. coordination. Program 2, intergovernmental coordination, is split into two: chairperson intergovernmental relations, which basically measures the interactions between the spheres of government, particularly the national and the provincial. To some degree, we also involve SAGA and COCTA, especially local municipalities, in our discussions, where now the meeting yesterday, we had a meeting with the minister called the MINMEC, Minister and MECs, which discussed the issues of common issues affecting the public works. So this basically measures the sector plan that we develop that will shape the common areas between the national and provincial aspects. So the sector plan, unfortunately, again, due to the changes in administration, the sector plan was not approved on time by the then MINMEC, of which now it has formed part of the discussion going forward. And then the second layer is then we also support by beneficiaries or those who participate in the programs, particularly the artisans, candidates. We also, as way of growing our own timber into the organization, where we focus in looking at the specific skills that will be required, especially in the core business, property, built environment overall. So we had a total of 1,200 against a target of 1,000. So we were managing a portfolio. This also includes the awarding of bursaries, basically our school, the push and demand of that program of a skills pipeline from schools to professional candidates. EPWP, one of the challenges that we've had, Chairperson, over time, and honorable members, has been the issue of the work opportunities that have been created. And I think over time we've tried to look at the best way approach, because this is more of a coordination function from an EPWP, where we're looking at coordinating all the public bodies that are reporting on work opportunities. And I think we've had a number of challenges engaging with the Auditor General, to the point that the findings that we normally experience are findings in terms of the issues that are found on the ground by public bodies, but then we as the department, being the overall coordinator, that we assume that those adverse findings. But we sought to look at it from a coordination point of view to say, let's measure let's look at the reports that consolidate all the work opportunities that, so what we were reporting are all the reports, which are quarterly reports that will then detail the work opportunities that have been created in that way. So that's basically what we've achieved in terms of EPWP. Property construction and research is split into two, which is property policy and research, but the second one is also the issue around infrastructure South Africa. Earlier on, in terms of the highlights, are reflected on the SIPs and the increase in the investment portfolio. So that's basically what. So this is our legislative program as well, where we're looking at Public Works Bill, which is still being reviewed, and there's consultation still going for the inputs, and it will eventually come to the portfolio committee and select committee for further deliberations and handling towards an act. We also, with CIDB Amendments Act, we're also undergoing that process, but that has been submitted for consideration by the minister, and then we'll also take it also for further public consultation, and it will come to the department. Infrastructure Development Act Amendment Bill is introduced to. This is still underway, Chairperson, but the focus is more on establishing ISA, Infrastructure South Africa, as an entity. So the discussions are underway in terms between the Minister of Finance, in terms of funding the business case, as well as Minister of Department of Public Service Administration, in terms of the organogram that will best suit the ISA as a scheduled entity. So that is also underway. And then others is for integrated SIPs those are the reports that will contain all the gazetted SIPs, including the investment book as well. The other bill that is basically you want to look at is to repeal redundant and obsolete acts and bills. We're looking at that, where we basically have a draft Public Works General Laws Amendment and Repeal Bill has already been submitted to Minister for consideration and for further further processing in terms of all the redundant or obsolete acts that actually are in contrary to some of the areas that we want to push within the built environment. The Program 5 Prestige portfolio, which is basically the support portfolio in terms of the planned state events. So we've got planned state events such as your saunas, but we also have unplanned state events such as your visits by maybe other presidents into the country. And so those we don't plan, they are not planned because they come as and when. The reason why we measure both planned and unplanned is because from an expenditure point of view, you still have to expand on that one. That's why we measure both. So we then disaggregate to say we have 14 state events that were managed within the financial year or in the period under review. 3 were unplanned state events, which basically are your presidential visits that we'll find from time to time. The 2 other indicators is basically efficiency indicators where we measure the project turnaround on the infrastructure projects or infrastructure support that we provide to parliamentary services as well as cabinet. And we measure that within a turnaround of 60 working days to provide that infrastructure support. PMTE Finance, which is now Program 6, which was Program 1 in the earlier slide, is that we are sitting at 99% expenditure against 100%. The full details will be explained when we look at the classifications as well as the breakdown of the 99% per program. Program 7 is real estate investment, which is our investment portfolio, investment booked when you're looking at our investment. As I explained earlier on, that we're managing 52 client departments. These are then encompassed in the CM, which is a regulated custodian asset management to Treasury, which was achieved. It's basically regulated that every second quarter it should be submitted to Treasury. That is informed by what you call the UMs, User Asset Management Plans, which basically contains the needs and the requirements of the client departments, then consolidated into a custodian asset management. Then in terms of the support, there's a support into smart cities. From a public works point of view, we support in terms of government precincts, where we support this by compiling those precincts and models, working together with local municipalities. Unfortunately, we could not achieve this one where we had planned for the Kunye precinct in Johannesburg, owing to the issues of feasibility studies that are continuously being revised, and also issues where now we're also looking at responsiveness of the bidders that will come in, because we have to go into the market for these models. So the responsiveness rate is also another challenge that we're picking. Program 8, construction project management. This is a combination of efficiency indicators. We look at the speed at which we conclude projects from a budget as well as from a time, but also looking at the quantum of projects that are completed. So it's an interrelated. If you look at it from clearing from the solutions that are identified to projects completed within agreed period and agreed budget, up until we look at the complete quantum of the targets that would have been achieved. And you see that these are all in yellow. Basically means that it's a partly outputs, partly completed projects, but also those that are not completed, they are at certain various stages of construction. And the challenges across are basically, we're facing challenges in terms of, from a client point of view, when we engage with the clients, the delays in the provision or the budget allocations also delays the project as well. So we also experience that. But from a contractor point of view, we also have contractors that are struggling in terms of cash flows. But beyond this, there are also external factors such as your mafia or the business forums, if you will, that we also experience this kind of challenges that also affect the construction environment and space. But overall, I think there are also challenges in terms of the poor contractor performance when it comes to the construction aspect of it. Real estate management services, which is our leasing portfolio. We're managing the leases. From the leasing, we also look at the savings that are realized and a potential of generating revenue from those leases, but also looking at vacant properties that can also be let out for other socio-economic elements, and also again the hectares that we also release are coming from the identified this same portfolio, where we also look at the number of hectares that is released for socio-economy. The challenge we've had, Chair, and I think this is a known fact, is that at the time of planning, particularly this first one in red, at the time of planning, the intention was to collapse or to reduce the number of leases within the security cluster, in this case subs, into telecom towers. That was at the time of planning, but subsequent to that, a number of challenges that we're experiencing in terms of that transition has affected this. But you will see that going forward, we've moved away from the security cluster now to look at identifying within the portfolio of public works, whether private or that's basically how we look at it, so that we also circumvent these unforeseen circumstances that may prevent us from achieving the targets. Then in terms of the target of savings that we realize, that is basically concluding a lease on reasonable rates when you project it over the period of the contract or the lease period. You find that when we renegotiate at a lower rate or at a reasonable rate, rather than the amount that would have been paid, the higher amount would have actually saved from paying that amount at a higher rate through those negotiations or renegotiated rates. So we're basically looking at 725 million that was saved from against the 200 million that we initially, which was our base from the portfolio. Then in terms of the percentage increase in revenue generation, 20% was the target. We've achieved more in terms of 501 because of the implementation. We've got interim guidelines that we've looked at in the organization that gives guidance in terms of how we manage our portfolio, and we've standardized that across the organization, and has given rise into letting out a significantly large part of our portfolio, which is business, with a higher lease rent value, giving rise to this higher percentage of the leases. In terms of the unutilized state-owned properties let out, a target of 134 for the year, we're sitting at 118%, though experiencing some implementation issues again because of that guideline, and familiarizing ourselves and that guideline across the 11 regional offices and head office. So the uptake in terms of the understanding and driving this also took some time, but at least but when you look at the achievement, 118 against 134, it's quite significant given the intents of these guidelines. Continuing with real estate management services, again, we also look at the support to emerging landlords, which basically is looking at the BEE component of our our property. So we're looking at categories A, B, and D companies in terms of our property management policy, empowerment policy. We're sitting at 84% against the 55%, and then also percentage let out companies or the triple BEE at level 4 above. We're sitting at 36% against the 10%. That should also be read in context with the guidelines and the speed at which we've moved as well, and also managing their large portfolio of this as well. Now, this is now another aspect, because we're talking about earlier on, I said we are spending X amount in terms of the maintenance. Now we're also saying, even when we go into the private leases, we also need to ensure that we do not get our clients into a private building that does not have a maintenance plan. So that basically is the indicator that says percentage of new lease agreements that are entered into should have and must have a maintenance plan, so that we do not have challenges of lockouts and challenges of inefficiencies and failure to administer their function or mandate within those government department, client departments, owing to the lack of maintenance. So that is 100% achieved because it is now a regulated aspect within that. Then the 109.6 hectares that we also released against that, these are difficult figures to read. Okay, it's a target of 10126 hectares. So yeah, it's a particular way how it's read, but yeah, we also had some challenges in terms of how we, and this was because we're talking about the release of land. So there's a release to the recipient, but also there must be engagements between the two parties. But in this case, Land Affairs Board approvals took some time, and also the analysis with the human settlements also took some time in terms of the two parties agreeing to the release of land. So those are some of the issues there are others where also we have to deal with National Treasury as well, and also concurrence with the Minister on those. Right. And then the Real Estate Information Register, which is our asset register, which will be emphasized as well in terms of the financial statements, is that we are also supporting provincial departments in terms of asset register, assessing compliance to our asset register. So we are targeting 9 provinces plus some portfolios within the department, so we achieve the target of 12. And then the immovable assets that are physically verified to confirm existence and validate existence and assess the condition of that. We're sitting at 19,762 against 22,000. And this is an intense program that requires significant resources. And again, another challenge that you will find is that because of the skills capacity and the skills that are required, over time, this has been managed from a contract point of view, contract appointment point of view, and then again with the constrained fiscals, some of these contracts had to be terminated. So then it affected the entire value chain of confirming verification on the ground. And then also because of, I mean, if you look at Northern Cape, the distances between the areas will also require certain type of tools and vehicles that will be required, and the vehicles from a leasing point of view also was another issue that affected. But these are some of the things, again, as I said earlier on, looking at growing our own timber through professionals, we're looking at how to then deal with the issues going forward. Then the last program, which is facilities management, dealing with the maintenance, is 3 indicators. 1, to assess the condition of our buildings, as well as looking at critical components within those buildings, which is HVAC, heating, ventilation, and air cons, gensets, and water systems. And then we're also looking at the how do we tilt or balance the preventative maintenance to tilt that ratio by ensuring that we've got term contracts or total facilities contracts that are on board to deal with the emerging issues or issues of maintenance on our behalf. We still have challenges in terms of our assessment of these buildings, but also the issues of constructing multidisciplinary, because these are old buildings. Some of them are heritage, some of them you find that the material does not exist anymore. So you're looking at multidisciplinary teams that will also looking at all these areas and requirements that will be dealt with to ensure that at least we also move with the issues around the maintenance. Then what we've also done, Chair and Honorable Members, is that we are also showing the audit opinions that have been expressed to the department in terms of the non-financial, in this case, Program 3, which basically Program 3, one of the issues that was raised by the Auditor General was saying the missing indicators. Now, missing indicators, basically what it's saying is that there is a medium-term strategic framework where it says that the target is 5 million for work opportunities created throughout the country for the next 5 years, and then that will be disaggregated annually. Now, again, linking that to Program 3, we said number of reports, owing to the challenges that we faced from public bodies in managing the EPWP. So that missing target is that we did not reflect the indicator in terms of work opportunities, but we had number of reports instead. Even though our argument is that the reports themselves will detail the work opportunities that have been created. We're moving away from trying to get, but that's a discussion that is being held to look at how best we can manage that. So the approach that we are taking going forward, Chair and Honorable Members, in the section of the annual performance report, our annual performance plan, you find that there's a section that's called consolidated KPIs. And the consolidated KPIs, that's where you will find those where now, instead of looking at the work opportunities that give rise to these adverse findings at a national level, you will find that they will go into the consolidated, where now AG will look at the consolidated, look at the public bodies that are reporting, and then we'll go to the public bodies to then look at that issue. So that's the part that we are also finalizing and working with National Treasury as well as Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation Department. Construction project management, the challenges have been the issues around supporting evidence against what we've reported. I think that's another issue where you find that sometimes there's omissions in some of the project files that then support what we reported. And the real estate is supporting evidence, but also there was an issue around the missing indicator around this, where if you look at the missing indicator, it says the department is responsible for percentage of approved land reform project provided with post-settlement support in terms of medium-term strategic framework. The challenge there, Chair, is that when you look at the value chain of this post-settlement or the release of land, we trigger a process, we release land to the recipients, but we do not know what they do. We don't look at the post-settlements, whether it's by gender or what, because that is the responsibility of the recipient of the land. However, the target was assumed to be 100% in control of the department. So these are some of the discussions we're having in terms of distilling or reconfiguring indicators within the value chain, identifying the role players, and then they take or assume responsibility within the value chain. So that's another issue. And then facilities management was an indicator on issues around a maintenance plan, of which it's encompassed in the term contracts, but then we are couching it differently now to look at those indicators that deal with maintenance. So there are two aspects basically when it comes to the audit issues. When you're looking at all of these issues, it's basically missing indicators and then supporting evidence. So those are the main issues basically, Chair. Thank you very much. That's the non-financial, Chair and honorable members.
Thank you very much. Lots of information in record time, but you got through it. Thank you very, very much. DG?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Then we can then request that we get the CFO to just do the financials, and then obviously that will conclude the public works. Thank you. CFO?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chairperson and honorable members. Lwazi has taken a lot of time. I'll try to catch up because CIDB must still present. Chair, on slide number 24, it's just a trend of the audit outcome, how the DPW has performed in terms of the audit. It has been unqualified over the last 3 years. Focusing on the current year, the financial statements received an unqualified audit opinion, which is a good audit outcome. However, there were emphasis of matter of impairment of receivables, where clients are still owing us money for the main vote. Then the performance information also had negative findings for the main 4 programs: construction project management, real estate management services, facilities management, expanded public works program. They all got negative findings by AG on performance information. Then in terms of the overall spending, Chair, against the budget of 8.4 billion, 8.3 billion was spent by the main vote, which is 98.8% spending, which is a good performance, Chair. However, the reasons for underspending, it's mainly on, the variances are mainly on compensation of employees, where 31 million was not spent. However, the spending pattern on compensation of employees was 94%. But that is due to cost containment that was implemented by National Treasury and DPSA, which then delayed filling of positions. And then for goods and services, we spent 88%. There was underspending of 66 million. That is as a result of the project preparation that did not spend the amount that was allocated. There were a number of reasons that were provided. The allocation from Treasury had a lot of conditions that we had to comply with. Hence, then Infrastructure South Africa could not spend that full amount. Moving to the next slide, Lwazi. So in terms of the revenue, Chair, the main vote received 8.4 billion, which was appropriated by Parliament, and the departmental revenue was 32 million. So in total, it's 8.4 billion against 8.1 of the previous financial year. So there was a slight increase in terms of the revenue for the main vote. While the expenditure, Chair, it's 8.3 billion. We have a surplus of 134 million. It's less than the one of last year because we had a lot of underspending in the previous year. Hence, our surplus is less because we have to surrender any surplus to National Treasury. As you can move to slide 29. So slide 29, it's a statement of financial position, which is known as a balance sheet in those old days. Under current assets, Chair, we have 372 million, which last year was 300 million. In terms of the non-current asset is 95 million, whereas last year it was 80 million. So in total, we have assets of 468 million for the year we are reporting, while liabilities are sitting at 720 million. The reason for such a huge liabilities, Chair, it's because of unauthorized expenditure that is sitting under payables of 252 million. I will explain that under unauthorized expenditure. As you can move. Then in terms of disclosure notes, Chair, the highlights that I want to emphasize, it's mainly on contingent liabilities where we have 119 million. That is as a result of the amount that was not confirmed by Defence, where they are owing us, particularly for Welisizwe bridges. You can move, Lwazi, to unauthorized expenditure. So unauthorized expenditure is the one that I will want to pay attention to. Chair, in the last 7 years, we had a lot of unauthorized expenditure. It's a very old transactions, which then are supposed to be presented by National Treasury to SCOPA for approval, whether with or without funding. So this is a historical amounts where we spent more than what we had more than 10 years ago. There are processes that are in place with National Treasury so that Parliament can take a decision whether to approve that on unauthorized expenditure or disapprove. Then in terms of irregular expenditure for the main vote, we have 126 million. The investigation is underway to resolve these transactions, and in certain instances we have held people accountable where labor relations is busy with consequence management. As you can move. On fruitless expenditure, there are no movement. It's still the same amount compared to the last financial year. However, we are also referring certain issues to labor relation for consequence management, particularly the basic education, which GRC has investigated, and there are findings with regard to that. So there are processes that are underway to implement consequence management. Can move to PMTE. On PMTE, Chair, if you look at the trend of the audit outcome, we didn't do well. It remains as qualified audit opinion, mainly because of payables, particularly accruals, property, plant and equipment, and also another accrual also, which is a prior period area where our accruals also were not properly done by PMTE. We were also qualified on commitments, which is the same as last year. So on commitments and accrual, we did not improve, while other areas that were qualified in the previous year were resolved. Then moving to the financial statements. Chair, on the summary of actual receipts against the budget that was projected for PMTE, we projected a final budget of 20.5 billion, and we received 18.1 billion, which is 88%, Chair. If you compare with the previous year, the final budget was 22 billion, and we received 19.2 billion. So there is a decrease, Chair, because of clients that are not paying us and they reduce the budget when it comes to PMT transactions. Against that budget, Chair, if you move to the next slide, Lozi. Against that budget, Chair, we spent 19.8 billion, which is 96% spending. So from the budget versus expenditure point of view, it's 96% performance, which is good. However, I must highlight, Chair, the significant line item where under maintenance, the projected budget was 2.8 billion, and we spent 2.9 billion. That's where we spend a lot of money on day-to-day maintenance, which is a concern because we are just doing minor maintenance instead of focusing on repair and refurbishment. Then on capital, Chair, we did not do well in terms of projects, where then capital recoverable, which is funded by clients departments, we spend 77%, and capital that is funded by the main vote, it's 82% spending, which is it's not as bad as the one that is funded by clients departments. You can move, Lwazi, to slide number 40. On financial positions, Chair, mainly assets, our current asset is 4.7 billion, while our non-current asset is 153 billion. So in total, the total assets that we have is 157 billion, where there is a slight decrease, Chair, if you compare with the previous financial year. Actually, it's a slight increase, Chair, if you compare with the previous financial year, where we had 157.6 billion, whereas in this year it's 157.8 billion. Then on financial position liabilities, our current liabilities is 12.2 billion, and non-current liabilities is 3.2 billion. So in terms of our total liabilities sitting at 15.4 billion, and we have a net assets of 142 billion. I must emphasize, Chair, if you look at the current assets against current liabilities, we are challenged with cash flow because our current liabilities are much more than our current liabilities, so which is a concern for us then to have a 4.7 of current asset against current liabilities of 12.2 billion. But it's something that we are working hard to resolve. Then if you move to the next slide, Lwazi. So I've already indicated our total revenue. It's sitting at 17.2 billion. Actually, it increased from 17.2 billion to 18.2 billion. And while our expenditure also increased from 17.8 to 18.8 billion, which then resulted to a deficit of 658 million, which is a little bit higher than what was in 2023, where we had 625 million. Then in terms of financial performance, I'm not going into too much details. I've already covered significant line items. However, Chair, what I must highlight, the PMTE, when we came to this select committee, we did indicate our challenges around the inability of clients' departments to pay, and also the budget where it continued to decrease, which then results to a deficit of 658 million. The other area that I will want to touch that contribute to this deficit, we have a depreciation of 3.5 billion, which is not really funded because that's where our portfolio depreciate, the portfolio that I've already spoken about, where we had 157 billion of worth of our assets, so they do depreciate. It's a non-cash asset. It contributes to our deficit. The other area that maybe one need to highlight for the committee is impairment loss on receivables, which is sitting at 1.6 billion, which shows that our recovery rate is not good as a result of clients not paying us on time, and some transactions are very old, hence we have to impair them. Irregular expenditure, Chair, it's same as DPW in terms of what we are doing. There are a lot of transactions that are being referred for investigation. Some they are before labor relation for consequence management. Some they are under assessment, as you can see. Chair, however, what I must highlight, there is an increase, Chair. We had 1.9 billion of irregular expenditure in the previous year. We now have 2.2 billion. So there are transactions that were identified as irregular expenditure this year, which is 257 million, whereas last year it was 258 million. So it's a slight decrease. Similarly with fruitless expenditure, it's under investigation. We are working hard also to make sure that no further transactions are under fruitless expenditure. As a result, there were no new transactions for the year that we are reporting. Then the total outstanding debt, Chair, this is a gross amount. It's not after impairment. So it's sitting at 12.6 billion, which are the amounts that clients are owing PMTE. What I must highlight though, Chair, as much as these amounts are significant, against 9.5 billion, which was the opening balance, we only received 1.1 billion, which is a demonstration that clients are not paying old balances, whereas amounts that were invoiced in the year that we are reporting was 16.6 billion, and we received 12.5 billion, which is 75% recovery rate when you compare the current invoices against amounts that we received. So our main challenges is mainly on old balances that we are not recovering. Chair, I therefore recommend that the committee note the main vote, annual report, non-financial performance and financial performance, and also to note for the PMTE, the audit report, and as well as the financial performance as I have presented. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Sitole and DG. That takes care of your department. Is somebody presenting from CIBD?
I think the CEO will do that, Chair. Thank you very much.
Mr. Nzo, who's the CEO? Got it, okay. Mr. Bongani, thank you. Thank you very much for the time management. We're doing very well. Thank you.
Chair, maybe the chairperson of the board would want to just do a small opening in the absence of the minister. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nzo.
Thank you, Chair. Let me firstly take this opportunity to thank the committee for making the time to listen to our presentation. And as you said, Chair, that we regard ourselves as one of you, and you and one of us. So we appreciate the engagements that you're about to have, because it allows us to get some strategic direction going forward as we get your input as well. And mine is just simply to allow the CEO to do the presentation, Chair, and he'll be the one answering the difficult questions. I'll leave that up to him. Our CEO has been appointed Chair only 2 years ago. Don't be intimidated by his looks. He was actually a toddler when we appointed him 2 years ago. I know the Honorable Kaunda asked about the women in the room, but never asked about the youth. He's still under 35. But Chair, the board took a very bold decision in allowing such a young man to head a national organization. And I must say, Chair, that we haven't regretted. He has led this organization to a clean audit in this financial year. And of the targets, 18 targets that we had over the financial year, he's achieved 94%. So we are very grateful of that decision and appreciate it, and it is yielding results. Chair, I'll allow him to quickly go through the presentation in the interest of time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Honorable Chairperson, honorable members, and colleagues from Public Works and entities. Chairperson, I'll also just steal a little bit of time because it's our first time on the 7th administration to just introduce what the CIDB is and what we are aiming to do. Really, we are established to provide strategic leadership to the construction industry to ensure that we have sustainable growth and also ensure the participation of the emerging sector. And we really do this by providing best practices, provide frameworks for uniform applications of policy, develop guidelines for development, and then also monitor the industry that we are regulating. And in the past 5 years that we are closing in our strategic plan, we had goals of being a reputable regulator, also ensuring sound corporate governance, which we've achieved and are achieving, and working in alliance with our stakeholders because we believe in development through partnerships and ensuring that the construction industry thrives, and I hope and is innovative. And I hope our presentation will highlight some of those initiatives that we have undertaken. Chairperson, in how we've arranged ourselves in 5 programs. One, dealing with the administration, the housekeeping issues, and the approach that we have taken to our strategic planning is to consolidate our target towards the catalytic targets. For instance, when we want to deal with issues around corporate governance, issues around financial management, we've grouped that in Program 1 and are using tools like the Auditor General assessments to judge our progress against that. We truly believe in research and development so that we can have a industry and a policy direction that is informed by facts on the ground, and also dedicated another program in terms of regulations, another one in construction industry performance. Procurement and development becomes also critical in the built environment, and that's what really we also established to do, and ensure that our delivery arms also caters to all our provinces and municipalities in terms of having access and advisory services there. Chairperson, as the board chairperson has indicated, in the year under review, we achieved 94% of our target, and the one target that we missed was the expenditure on the build program, which was our first year of implementation, but achieved an expenditure of over 90% on that. And then again, the reasons for missing that particular target was the lower than expected uptake in our contractor development programs, but I will go into that program because we really need to scale that for us to have a construction industry that is efficient and effective. Chairperson, on housekeeping issues, one of the major issues that led us to getting a clean audit was also resolving audit outcomes. We had set our target of 70% in terms of resolving all the audit issues that were raised in the previous report, and under that we achieved 87% of those issues. And we also undertook a board assessment to also ensure that we can ensure the board is effective as it provides its oversight. And then another important target was also on payment of service providers within 30 days, which we've achieved 100% by implementing a weekly payment to ensure that our SMMEs can be supported with cash flow issues. And then around the issues of our IT, we've gone very far in our digitalization aspects, where we've moved all our services online to ensure better access to our services. Yeah, apologies, Chairperson. Yeah, so we've moved all our services to online to ensure better access while still maintaining presence in all offices, in all provinces in terms of our services, and that has yielded also a good result of 99% system uptime against a target of 97%, and that were the housekeeping issues around the administration program. The second program is on research and development, and we also do our research and development through the centers of excellence that we've all established currently at the University of Johannesburg, which has partnered with Walter Sisulu University and the Witwatersrand University, which is also identifying partners from universities that are also developing their research profile. And we also do our own research as the CIDP. The research that we've done under the centers of excellence are really focusing on issues around building information modeling, maturity for the South African country, because we want to establish the building information standards for the country, because really for us to have smart cities, we need to start with this type of work, ensuring also maintenance frameworks, because we had initially done the maintenance framework for the country, but we want to updating that. So it has really resulted in many students being supported, and partnering with universities has a significant multiplier effect. For instance, under the Center of Excellence, only at UJ graduated 52 honors students, 12 PhD students, and 3 postdoctoral. The nice thing also about these students that we have supported through the CITP is that many of them have gone on to take leadership positions in our universities, because we also instill the fact that when they complete their PhDs, they also need to go and work in universities that might not have as strong of a research profile. Currently, one of the recent students is at Walter Sisulu University, who's also taking up a leadership position at the University of Johannesburg. The head of department there in quantity surveying is a product of this program, and at TUT also, the head of department there in construction management and quantity surveying is a product of this. Because we want to fast track also the development of youth in the skills, the future skills, we've also supported a number of students, over 100 students, in terms of the BRICS Future Skills program, where they have participated in competitions. The year under review, I think we won gold as South Africa, bronze, gold, and the silver as South Africa, and they've just completed another exercise competing with other BRICS countries, where we also won a bronze. The gold went to Russia this time around, but we are also there in instilling the aspects of building the curricula for the building information modeling, and also trying to find ways to disseminate that. So that's under our research and development. We are also working hard to ensure compliance to our regulations, because a lot of the regulations that we are putting out are more developmental really than anything else. So we are chasing up compliance on that, where we are focusing on dealing with issues of non-compliance and dealing with them within 30 days from detection, in terms of issuing compliance notices and following those up. And we've achieved 100% around that. We've also proposed registration criteria amendments for them to be more robust in terms of risk mitigation, but also being developmental in nature. Those have been submitted also to the Minister for consideration. Our migration of our services from paper-based to online, which we concluded the vast majority of it in the year under review, has helped us to be able to deal with our applications within 21 days, where 99.95% of the 83,000 applications that were received were dealt with within 21 days. For grade 1 applications, the process has gone from 21 days basically to 21 minutes. And also for the higher grades, we are now averaging 14, 15 days to completing the application. And this helps a lot also in terms of curbing fraud and corruption in the process, because when these documents are uploaded online, they are saved in the cloud, and they have one version of the truth. No one can tamper with these particular documents. We do 4 industry reports, 1 on transformation, and I will deal with those ones, others on supply and demand, skills contractor development, and I will deal with the insights that are coming from that later in the presentation. And I've also produced the 1 report on the status of transformation in the industry and the industry performance standards that were approved by the boards. We had 1. In this one, we created a model policy also to assist municipalities as when they do development as to how to navigate some of the procurement regimes so that they can ensure that the contractors that they onboard are supported. So that is more focusing on our client. The online platforms that I talked about earlier are yielding significant results, where 70% now of our transactions are going through that, because we understood that access was a challenge in some of the provinces where we only have one office. So we really were pushing online, but we are still pushing the aspects of having satellite offices through partnerships so that our services can be offered in all corners of our country. Chairperson, on program number 5, procurement and development, we developed standards that are guiding the industry in terms of transformation. We have 4 of those under the year under review. And then the construction industry development standards, also we had 2 that were developed. And the targets that we missed, Chairperson, of the monies that we collect from BUILD, we dedicate 40% of the BUILD program towards direct interventions by the CIDP. And in the year under review, we had focused on training on capacitation of women-owned construction companies from grade 5 to 8 on construction management systems. Instead of that 40%, we spent 87% and had a deviation of 3%. That's the only target that we missed, but we are continuing with the program now because we need to scale from the initial target that we had of 250 to about 2,000 and others. We've also established, as I indicated, the centers of excellence also under that developmental funds that we have collected. We've also written a report to guide the industry and also highlight those that are dealing with contractor development programs and the status of those. And on program number 6, we do capacitation to infrastructure clients on the prescripts, especially the developmental one. We had a target of 72 in the year under review, and we achieved 95. And then we also have reports on the interventions that are done at provinces that we highlight, Chairperson. This is the distribution of the certifications that we've achieved on the construction management system, where majority are still based in Gauteng, but we've also done better allocations in provinces to ensure that we can get more. And currently, as we see it right now, we have training that is happening in the Free State currently, and Northern Cape will start shortly. Chairperson, and other provinces are going to follow. Other highlights, Chairperson, I'll just share high-level insights on some of these reports that we produce because they are quite important for policymakers. We were deeply concerned around under-expenditure of budgets because that's really one of the major issues that delays development and service delivery. So when we looked at 5 years ago, the main issue was really at local government, hence our emphasis was there in terms of capacitation, either on infrastructure delivery management systems and other prescripts that are quite useful for planning and development. But you will see that local governments have improved quite a bit. Have improved in a sense that there's been continuous improvement over the years. Now the challenges are really now sitting at national government departments with some of the larger projects. Hence, we are focusing now on our capacitation sessions on those particular clients, Chairperson. And transformation, when we are looking at this aspect, we had an ambitious target of 5 years of saying from grade 7 to 9, we wanted to close our SP period with 67% target on that, and it's currently sitting at 66% at grade 9. 55% of our contractors are 51 black-owned. And also with women-owned construction companies at grade 9, we are sitting at 25%. And there are also interventions where we wanted at a target of 30%, but this will carry through also to our next strategy. And on youth ownership, currently at 70%, if you are looking at the highest grade. What we did as a CIDP, we didn't want to mask the statistics with including grade 1s and calculate the aggregate, because it hides the fact that where there is a lot of economic activities between grade 7, 8, and 9, what are the levels of transformation on that? And hence we can design better program, Chairperson. When we're looking internally focused, Chairperson, the past 2 years we have embarked on a organizational culture improvement program, which really was focusing, Chairperson, on ensuring leadership visibility and leadership that is capable to lead, because we believe for an institution of our size, it's quite important that we set the right organizational culture and also a leadership that can lead in order for us to succeed. So there we focused a lot on leadership development, where we've taken from the board level on governance training, the executive management, to ensure all of them can mentor and coach, and then at the senior management level, taking them through the management development programs, and have run a series of engagements to ensure that all our staff members contribute to our strategy. And we are watching that space quite well, because we believe an entity that is well equipped around these issues will be able to better deliver. And also on our audit opinion, and this is what we really use to measure some of the aspects regarding financial management, disclosures, compliance with policies. We've moved from the 3 years from qualified audit opinion to an unqualified audit opinion on the 2023 to a clean audit opinion in 2024, which is the first for the CIDB's existence in the past 20 years. So we did that by really focusing on ensuring that the board does effective oversight and management is aware of what they ought to be doing, and then also following up our audit plan quite well, Chairperson. As you will see, AG found no problems with our financial statements and also our revenue management, expenditure management, asset management, consequence management, and we registered in the year under review 0 fruitless and wasteful expenditure, 0 unauthorized expenditure. Yes. And then under our financials, Chairperson, we've grown our net asset value from 391 million to 566, where bulk of this money that we've collected also through some of the exchange and non-exchange items will go 100% to development, which is our build program. We've increased also the receivables from for this build program that is really our industry. We are aiming over the 5 years to collect 1.5 billion so that we can provide the direct interventions to our contractors and practitioners in the sector. We've grown that from 166 million in the previous year to 271 million, but are chasing up also payment. We have a relatively healthy financial position with a positive cash resources of 288 million. But this is not for the CFO of Public Works, it's for the parliamentarians. So we are still poor CFO, so when you do appropriations. And again, our financial statements will show that we had a surplus of 175, but the way we've structured ourselves is that whatever money that is collected as a surplus becomes money that we use for development in the following financial year for development of our contractors. So where we run these programs like contractor development programs, the centers of excellence, and the many other initiatives that we would love also to take the committee through into greater details when time allows. I thank you all, Chairperson.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Ndadla. I can see after the intro of the CEO, Mr. Nzulu, of the CEO, that you not just youthful, you're also the teacher's pet. You sit in front of the class, so well done. It's very interesting. I actually learned something on the last oversight visit to KwaZulu-Natal. Somebody mentioned the best practice contractor recognition program and explained to me a little bit about it and how it's going to be a game changer. So I'm really sorry that we haven't got time to go into exciting programs like that. Maybe for future reference, if the department can send us the material well in advance so that we can work through it and then we can just glance through it in our presentation and spend more time on questions and interesting presentations like that. Thank you very much, DG. Without further ado, I'd like to then proceed to questions. Honourable members, you've received the presentations and I think you've all prepared some questions. So shall I take the first hand there, Honourable Skierkogel, but I'm sure you've all got questions. So let's start with Honourable Skierkogel, then Honourable Kaunda, Honourable Tlele, and then Honourable Muimang. Makasini, sorry. Honourable Makasini, I apologize, then Honourable Muimang. Let's start with 3 minutes per session. I'd like the department to answer, ask and answer, instead of asking a whole bunch of questions and then we might lose track. So you've got 3 minutes, Honourable Skierkogel, and let's see how many rounds we can do. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Chair. Maybe just expand a little bit, because that was the first time I saw it in this thing. It's talking about the National Stakeholders Forum. How does it work? How does it operate? Because I feel like that's something that's really...
Sorry to interrupt. I'll give you extra time. When you ask the questions, honourable members, can I just ask for the benefit of the department, just say which department you're referring to, and if you're referring to a specific program, which program you're referring to. That might be easier for them to handle the questions. Thanks very much.
All right, I'll try my best to do that. But the National Stakeholders Forum, just how does it work and how can that possibly assist with the construction mafia? But my question is, has this forum has they taken any executive undertaking that needs to be secured with this forum? Then I think it was the first presentation that you spoke about the business automation, that there's a very low target on that being met. I just want to find out, is that not possibly because the PMT asset register is not up to date and maybe not loaded onto the system, so the people can't access to lease from the government? And then I think it's still the first presentation, Chairperson, on the delays of the registration of the transfer of land. It says that there's delays with the Land Affairs Board. What are those delays and why are they, what is the items on that? Then this is to the CDIB. There was an investigation by the Special Investigation Unit from 2009 till 2016. Have you received the result of that investigation? Because I don't see that. And then can the CIDB quantify their compliance level? And then my last question, Chairperson, there is, and again, I think it's the first presentation as well, about the line item of the, I think it was unregular or unauthorized spending, that there's a lot of overspending on employees. What is the reason why we overspent it? I think it was unauthorized spending. Why is it so high? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Skierkogel. Would you like to proceed? Thanks, DG.
Maybe let's, thank you very much, Honourable Member. The National Stakeholders Forum, I'll ask Mr. Sibanda to respond on that. And then on the issue of the Land Affairs Board, we'll ask Adam to respond on that. And then on the SIU, Loaz will do that, and then the last is CFO, in that order. Thank you.
Morning, Chair. Thank you, honourable members, DG, colleagues. I think I'll start with the business automation one, and then I will also attempt to respond to the National Stakeholders Forum issue. In relation to the business automation, one of the strategic objectives that the Minister wants us to undertake this in this administration is to digitalize our business processes. I think that is the first thing, the digitalization of our business processes. One is to review the current ERP system that we have. Secondly is to ensure that we digitalize our immovable asset register, which is our source of our very own existence. as public works. We are there to oversee the state immovable assets. So what does that mean is that, of course, you're correct, sir. Everything starts with the asset register. If you've got the wrong asset register, it means that your entire business processes, including your financial position, as the CFO have indicated earlier on, we've got a finding on our PPE based on the asset register itself. So we need to have a credible asset register. Although what we have done so far is that, which is part of the process, the DG has appointed a steering committee that will then start the process of securing an ERP system. We are also in the process of securing a software application, which will then ensure that most of our PMT business platforms are all automated. But the minister even said yesterday, we will never reach 100% correct asset register, but we will strive towards a very lean margin of error in our asset register. So I agree with you. We have to work on those two issues simultaneously, which is to automate and also improve on the credibility of the asset register. The second issue of the National Stakeholders Forum, then the issue of the construction mafia, I think my colleague from CIDB will also concur to that. There is an upcoming workshop. The DG will also speak to that as well. But there are a number of forums on the ground. We do have social facilitation programs as well that also seek to address some of the challenges that come as a result of the construction mafia. But in our interaction with their colleagues on the ground, there are 3 or so provinces which are affected, nonetheless, in the main. So there are processes underway to respond to the construction mafia challenges. That also included the National Stakeholder Forum as a structure as well. I think the DG will also add on that one. DG, I think I've responded to those two, but you may add as well. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much. Maybe, Chair, to just correct Adam, when I said he must speak, he was outside. So I think he will actually respond on the Land Affairs Board. And then also the issue of the SIU and the skills forum, CIDP will respond directly on that, and then our CFO. Thank you, Chairperson. Adam?
Thank you, DG, and good morning to the Chairperson and members of the Select Committee. On the issues of Land Affairs Board, I just want to confirm, Chairperson, that indeed the term of office of this particular board has expired. It expired around May, so it was during the time of transition, just to ensure that work which was outstanding in the 6th administration transit to 7th administration. So we're able to deal with recruitment processes. We issued an advert, and the advert is closed. We're now in the process of dealing with nominations. We received the nominations, and we are going to recommend to the executive authority and thereafter consult with cabinet. I should think with the outstanding work, in 2 months' time, we should have finalized the board. I just want to put that assurance, Chairperson, even to the members of the committee. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. On the National Stakeholder Forum, our Act makes provision for 40 members of the public, professional associations, infrastructure client bodies to advise the Minister and the Board on the policy direction. So over the past 2 years, we've had a National Stakeholder Forum which has focused on 7 key priority areas around ensuring we improve the quality of contractors, we improve the client bodies and how they deliver on that. And they provide advice on an annual basis to the minister. We should be having a meeting coming up in December with the new minister on that particular issue. Where it helps is that, for instance, we're also dealing with the issues around improving on the social facilitation frameworks also under that. Where it helps is that you are getting both client bodies, contractors, civil society, contributing to what should be the policy direction. So we also use the National Stakeholder Forum to test a lot of ideas around also some of the developmental initiatives, the practice notes that we put out. So in our report, in our annual report, so we do reflect on those initiatives, but it's a very useful platform to advise the minister and the board on what should be the policy direction that could enhance the construction industry. So it does, on the matters that you've raised around the issues of construction mafia, it does provide assistance in that. The second aspect on the SIU, I believe the investigation has been completed, and we are awaiting the report once it is submitted to the president. This was emanating from all the registrations that were being investigated, whether they were received fraudulently or not. And once we have received that report, we will act accordingly, as we are acting on the other cases, the active cases that members of the public might register with us when we suspect a contractor might have gotten grading illegitimately. The aspects of quantifying our non-compliance, yes, we do quantify our non-compliance in the various aspects. The area that we are significantly struggling with is the register of awards, when a contractor has been awarded and the completion of the closeout report and rating of the contractor, which goes to what the Honorable Chairperson of the committee was raising. That becomes a game changer, because once you are able to complete that picture, we are able to make a sound judgment, even as an infrastructure client, as to how these contractors have performed in the past, how much loaded they are with current work, so that as you are doing your risk mitigation, you should be able to. So it's one area that's why we are focusing very much on ensuring compliance, hence even one of the APP targets, wanting to deal with these matters within 30 days. I hope I've answered the questions, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Stoli?
Thank you, Chair. The question was why unauthorized expenditure under compensation of employees. As I indicated, it's a very old transactions. In EPWP in 2008-9 financial year, there was unauthorized expenditure of 48 million because we had to capacitate EPWP. Then in 2011, 2012 also there was 18 million to capacitate the department for other key programs. So basically these are old transactions more than 10 years ago. But we have put systems in place such that we have never had any unauthorized expenditure in the last 10 years. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mrs. Stoli. DG, anything else? That's it. Honourable Skirkwagel, are you covered? Thank you very much. Honourable Nzimande.
No, thanks, Chair. Mine is just two, and I guess are very simple. The first one deals with the issue of liabilities versus the assets, the strategies that are available to deal with that. The second one deals with the issue of disciplinary measures, cases exceeding prescribed timelines, whether analyses have been made on the real causal factors, whether usage of attorneys might be also one of the factors, or there are other factors other than that. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Mzimande. DG?
Thank you very much. Maybe let me ask on the second question that CJ responds on that, and then the CFO on the first one.
Great. Good morning. It's CJ Abrams. Having started in August, this extra duties, I've developed what you call a register in relation to it. I think one needs to recognize that every quarter, we present the information to FOSAT, and we also present the information to the PSC. If we do look at the number of days, I can already see that there were quite a few delays in particular periods over the last 5 years, 2019 specifically, 2020. However, there is definitely an improvement. I think this particular quarter, in terms of grievances, we might have had just over 30. We almost finalized most of them, I think about 90% of them. Key reasons for it is the delays that we have in responses, sometimes delays from employees. Sometimes we also have issues whereby we don't have sufficient capacity within the department, and specifically there we would be looking at getting additional to the establishment in relation to the support there. However, we are working with the PSC. We met with them now recently to be able to look at some of the issues. And next week we will be engaging with the PSC and the whole of the department. It is something that DG has signed off so that we can, number one, improve the awareness on processes, and particularly the grievance processes that came in effect from the 1st of May. So there are ways and means for us to be able to look at that. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe to reinforce on the issues of disciplinary cases, including, maybe let me just say investigations. I'll just cite an example where we have a problem. You find that, like in the recent past, where we had people taking money from our bank account, you know, the cybersecurity case that we have. Now, you find that as we did the preliminaries in terms of checking who has done what using the state agencies, we then got some recommendations and then suspended people. Now you find that in terms of doing so, there are prescribed timelines to say you can't suspend someone if, for a long time. It must be within a particular period. But when you look at the complexity of the matter, you find that maybe 60 days might not necessarily give you enough time, and then the union will come fighting to say, bring these people back, you know, even if you do have some elements of trying to investigate, because at some point you can't take a person through a disciplinary hearing where you've got half-cooked information. So there's quite such areas where we find that in some instances we might have to bring people back because we are still sort of looking at investigation. But I must say that the issue of capacity is one big area, and then also the issue of really using lawyers. We really want to discourage that. We do discourage that as far as possible. But however, Chair, the employees sometimes, to a certain extent, for lack of a better word, depending on how far the employee feel threatened by the process that we are trying to deal with it in him or her, then he will come with his lawyer. So those are challenges that we are facing. But I think as part of assistance, we do work with closely with DPSA to really help us in terms of assisting a lot in respect of these issues. Thank you very much, Mr. CFO.
Thanks, DG. What are we doing about improving our current ratio? Chair, there are a lot of interventions that are being put in place. One of them, the portfolio committee actually was requested National Treasury and PMT to come and talk to the portfolio committee about the funding gap that we are having, which we also presented to this committee, I think, on the 1st of August to deal with the funding gap. But over and above that, the minister also is writing letters to his counterpart to deal with the debt, and also there are engagements between the DG and those clients that are owing us. But Chair, what is very important, Chair, is a matter of the funding gap, which we indicated to this committee that clients are only allocating 14 rand per square meter for state properties that they are occupying, while in private sector we all know that on average is 110 rand per square meter. So it results then to all these issues that we are having. Over and above that, the liquid that they pay to us, I mean the liquid that it's approved by Treasury, they still don't pay that amount. Whereas we still need to provide services like in a correctional center, we must still provide maintenance even though we are not getting enough. So those are the reasons, but there are interventions, and the minister intends also to engage cabinet on this matter. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Tuli. DG?
Yeah, I'll just allow the head of PM just on the liabilities and assets. He wants to just emphasize something quickly.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, DG. Just to emphasize, because I think we need to put it within a context, DG and the Chair. Currently, there are quite a lot of backlash against Public Works in its incapacity to deal with a number of structural issues faced by different departments in terms of property maintenance in particular. And the center of that backlog is around the issue of the funding gap the CFO is referring to. I will put it in perspective in terms of the presentation he did, because we needed to really have a fair observation around these issues. One is that if you look in terms of our current assets, we have receivables which is 4 billion rand. But out of that 4 billion rand receivables, 1.1 billion rand is for municipal services. So departments don't pay for municipal services. What happened then? People, Public Works have to pay, and the timeline between them and paying us is significant in terms of the debt age analysis. We've got debts that are more than 380 days. And that puts a pressure on us to then utilize our cash to maintain some of the facilities. So there's a backlog. The second one, including in the current financial year, almost 700 million rand, which is another debt for leases that has not been paid by clients. So what does it mean? We pay landlords, but when client departments have to pay, they take their time. The third issue within that 4 billion rand, because if you look at PMTE, you are easy to say it's technically bankrupt or insolvent. But we have written off, out of the 4 billion rand, we have written off 11 billion rand impairment. We have impaired 11 billion rand. So what does that mean? That the client department have not been honoring that 11 billion rand, so we have to impair it. But if you add the 11 billion rand to the 4 billion rand on our receivables, we are having current assets to the value of 15 billion versus the 12 current liabilities. So technically we are good, but because we can't take clients to court, that is one, for debts, Chair. We can't sell the debts to the market for us to recover the money. So in terms of our capacity and the ability to recover, we are constrained. I think that is the biggest issue. But where is this coming from? I think the CFO was referring to that. The devolution framework model, that gives the appropriated budget to client departments. Therefore, it renders Public Works amenable to beg departments for that money. And what we have also discovered recently, some departments, they don't have the appropriated budget for Public Works at all in their baseline. Zero. Only 5 departments have got appropriate budget for Public Works. So what does that mean? They will decide whether there is money available for Public Works or not. Yet at the same time, you open media, hey, there's a building there, not being maintained, there's a problem there. But there's no money in Public Works. Instead, Public Works has front-loaded a number of departments. If you look at our accruals, we've got 3 billion rand accruals on the current financial year. That is accruals that we need to honor, because client department have not paid on time. But yet we've got our own internal issues, which the CFO is saying we're dealing with those issues to improve our efficiency as well. But if you look at the structural challenges, that is where our problem lies. Thanks, Chair. Thanks, DG.
I'm just thinking while I'm sitting here, it might be good to request the Department of Public Works to come to a sitting of the committee and invite correctional services, for example, and defence to the same meeting, and I'll bring some boxing gloves and we can mediate. Because I think it'll be a very interesting meeting, but that might be something that, I don't know if it's a novel way of doing things, but it might be some way to resolve some of the issues. I don't know. Honourable Zamandi, are you covered? Honourable Kaunda.
In English is covered.
Thank you for providing free translation services.
No, thank you, Chair. It just was on the lighter note. Chair, let me join you and colleagues to welcome these two comprehensive presentations by the departments and congratulate Mr. Ladla for his appointment as the CEO. They are doing a sterling work with his team and the CFO and the board since they've turned around the issues of audit outcomes. We congratulate you moving from disclaimer, the qualified, unqualified to clean audit. It's really took a lot of concerted efforts. So we really congratulate you for that. Chair, my first take will be we aspire to build a professional, ethical, and capacitated developmental state. Now, the department have just cited on its performance, citing issues where there is even a contract on the development of a certain plan where they could not identify the bidder. So are you putting a plan in place to build internal capacity instead of going out for such processes? Because it will also enhance the work that you are doing rather than over-reliance to outside body or external bodies. Secondly, Chair, they've also cited that there were some discrepancies in terms of expenditure. I couldn't get exactly where the sources of such programs and the funding that also impacted on the delays of project implementation, if they can just recite those issues. As government, Chair, we are well known of producing PhDs. But in return, I do not think that we benefit from that exercise. And we just spend money and say you hold this PhD when we are faced with challenges. For instance, if you talk about the construction sector, there are many challenges there. Firstly, it's one sector that is stubborn in terms of transformation. It's one sector that sometimes on its own characteristic, it has got the monopolistic approach, suppressing some growth. And I can give you details how such activities are happening, where you'll find people selling projects. You are given this 20 million projects, you say, I can't continue this because all these inputs that I needed for me to execute this project, somebody else have colluded with somebody else somewhere to say, let's escalate prices, make sure that there's no entry, there's no growth, and all those things. If these PhDs are not bringing papers to address such challenges, then that means it's a fruitless expenditure. I'm sorry to put it that way. Yeah, but in reality, that's how it constitutes itself. So we need to be looking at that. The other aspect, Chair, which needs to be attended to with speed, especially when it comes to the construction industry performance. The report states clearly that there are those challenges, but what are the key findings and recommendations of the transformation status reports completed so that we can be taken on board as a committee? The two last ones, Chair, is the first one being the turnaround plans to respond on the repeat audit issues, DG, because you are saying these are repeated issues for the past 3-4 financial years. What then constitutes your turnaround plan on audit plan to act on those issues, if that in the future can be shared with us if we are not ready to do such in this meeting. Then the issue on the finances and the debts, I think, Chair, we have to devise some urgent interventions on our oversight, because if this issue is not attended with speed, there are many options. The first option may be being the National Treasury adjusting its own regulations to allow the set asides. When Department of Education is allocated a budget for infrastructure, that becomes a set aside so that it doesn't take this money and pay other people. And you find that you are being owed because you have already executed the project. So those things need to be expedited. Otherwise, the department will have this continuous deficit that is unnecessary. And there are many other options that can also be looked at, whether you are given authority to charge them before you implement, because there's nothing that can preclude you to do that, but you need to have amendments, because we know in government there's this language, you don't pay in advance. So you don't pay in advance. You must do the service, render service first, then we pay you. But in this aspect, because it's the same community, we are within the same government. So it's unlike the private
Honourable Gonda,
sector.
as you
So,
conclude.
as I conclude, Chair, because I'm eating on the time of Honourable Nzimande, because he left some few minutes for me. So I think that those are the things that we need to expedite, Chair, so that we can assist the department. Otherwise, they are doing a wonderful job. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Gonda. Please proceed, DG.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. I think our minister calls people who owes us, not clients, debtors. So we call them that. So I think we just really welcome, Honourable Kaunda, the intervention that you are talking about in terms of the debt that you are being owed. I think I must say there's a lot that has gone through that particular area. And in terms of the plan to look at improving our audit outcome, I think I must indicate, Honourable Kaunda, that we've actually set up a committee where we jointly, as Public Works family, we agreed that where there's sort of better performance, you know, like in the case of CIDP, they've got a clean audit. So what strategies are they using to win this thing? So we have that particular approach to get all our CFOs together to look at that. It's something that we are working on, Honourable Kaunda. I would really like to request that Lwazi answer your first question around the first question that you asked, and then also the discrepancies on the expenditure. The CFO will actually respond on that. On the issue of PhDs, maybe let me just indicate the following. In terms of our work as Public Works, the research that is done, obviously, by those that I would assume that you're referring to what LADLA is actually doing. Also, as Public Works, we do offer bursaries, and also people study master's degrees in respect of this. There might be a need, Chair, to probably contextualize this, where, for instance, we can indicate to the committee how many people have we paid for and what have they done, so that you can actually reflect on those issues. It might help a bit, but mine, that is more of interest in my case, where we want to really do our work professionally, is the issue of enforcing professionalization and or registering of people who are delivering our projects. Because one particular issue which I'm very concerned with as an accounting officer is the inability of us, Chair, attracting registered professional construction managers, meaning that when you implement projects, you can't necessarily, if you're not registered, question a registered person, because you're actually immediately undermined. So as I speak, on the 11th next week, we'll be meeting with all project managers of Public Works, sitting to deal with these issues. I think we will really respond on that, Honourable Count. It's quite a very good input that you are raising. PhDs, are they really helping us? You know, I think we need to reflect on it. But I'll allow Mr. Zladla at the end. Lwazi?
Thank you, DG. In relation to building capacity, there are quite a number of strategies that are put in place, but I think suffice to say is you are looking at, one, the existing personnel in terms of the current strategy, current structure of the organization. That's number one. Number two, because we're split between the two, we've got the main vote and the PMT. Now, where the critical skills that you require within the built environment will be in the built environment, which will be in the PMTE. Now, the challenge we're currently facing, of which we are basically dealing with as part of addressing the capacity issue, is that you're looking at the split of main vote and PMTE. It was simply a movement of people from the main vote to PMTE. Now, which basically means that you're moving people into a PMTE as a structure. Now you have capacity issues, you have skills issues, skills deficit. Now, how do you deal with that? So the idea basically is to say, while dealing with the constraints of the fiscus, but you must also look at the review of the organogram in relation to the emerging trends in the built environment. And that will also require a skills audit of the current personnel. So that is a process that is actually unfolding in terms of addressing that, so that now when you come with an organogram, then you're looking at an organogram that will be also informed by the skills that will be required, and that will then inform the advert and the filling of those positions in relation to that capacity. And I think that's it's an exercise that is actually happening in relation to that. Working together with us councils like your CBE, also looking at tapping into the skills base and those areas in relation to that. So it's a long-term exercise of looking at organogram as well as capacity. Yeah. But I think it's understood that government, it takes quite a while to deal with those issues as well. And also the approval from the DPSA on those issues, the toing and froing takes quite a while. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. CFO, and then Mrs. Mande.
Thanks, DG, and thanks, Bob Cohn. On discrepancies, I'll assume you are referring where we have underspent, particularly on public works. As I indicated earlier on, compensation of employees, yes, there is a underspending of 32 million. The reason for that, Treasury issued cost containment last year, and which also link up with DPSA to say no position can be filled without concurrent by DPSA, which also, after we've submitted to DPSA, DPSA must send that to Treasury for Treasury to confirm. So it's a lengthy process, and while we have that, people continue to resign, people continue to pass on. So the rate of filling positions actually is almost to zero, because you lose more people than the one that you are filling. So as a result, we have that discrepancy in terms of expenditure vis-a-vis the budget. Then on goods and services, it's also project preparation for ISA, where Treasury issued a number of...
Sorry, Chief Whip, can I whip you? Let's give Mrs. Atoli a chance, please. Thanks very much.
Okay, thanks, Chair. Then on goods and services, there is 66 million that also Mr. Kaunda called it a discrepancy. On that one, Treasury gave ISA money for project preparation, but with a number of conditions to comply. One of them is to open a separate bank account, is to sign MOU with IDC, which is the implementing agent for ISA. So that process took time because we only transferred the money to IDC around September, and it was too late for IDC to do any work. So that was a result of that huge underspending. Thank you, Chair. Oh, sorry, Chair, maybe the last point that Mr. Kaunda raised on that and the Chair, we can also wait for that meeting between DCS and ourselves. They do have a lot of complaints, which we must also accept on our side. However, they owe us a lot of money. because it's well and good to complain about the state of facilities and yet you are not funding. Where can we get money even to improve that facility? So the other thing that maybe Parliament must consider, I think this issue that we must pay and claim, this is one government, the money comes from Treasury. Maybe there should be a law that says, look, public works provide infrastructure. The funding for infrastructure must come to us. We provide a service to a client department, not for a client department to dictate. When they are funding reduction, the client just take the money that ought to pay public works and focus in other areas. I think there is a huge discrepancy in that area, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. You must come and get my card. I've actually asked the 2 questions to Correctional Services and to Defence, to the ministers, on those outstanding monies. And they sent me responses. I'll forward them to you so you can see what excuses they are using. Proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, teaching. I think I saw your comment, Chair, and those questions you have raised to the DCS. They also brought to us. I think it's also helping to see their response as well. But Chair, I want to respond to some few issues that the Honourable Kaunda has raised. Just to add on the CFO, I think you've raised a question on the repeated findings by the AG. I think the main issue with PMTE over the period of time were repetitive findings around accruals. We have issues that we are currently addressing with the CFO and the team in terms of the CFO's leading and to deal with accrual issues. Those were material findings, both on payables and receivables. On the payable, the AG said we understated our accruals. On the receivable, they said we have overstated. However, those are the issues that we are cleaning up. Why there were accruals at times because of what the Honourable Kaho said earlier on. We are relying mainly on manual system in the department. We are far behind when it comes to ICT and automation. So once we migrate to an automated system, most of the accrual findings will become to zero because we will have credible information that will present to the AG. But we need to reduce our accruals as much as they are very high. The second issue is the property, plant and equipment around the issue of the asset register, the mobile asset register. Every year, you know the disclaimer we had a few years ago was under asset register. This year, we almost got it right. Only one property, which we provided a value, which we were not supposed to provide a value because it does not belong to us. And the amount of that property was then extrapolated from 480 million to 2.1 billion by the AG. Then it becomes a material finding. So we can't argue with the AG on that one. They were very firm. I tried to persuade them otherwise. They said even if they find one, in terms of GRAP, I know very well, GRAP 17, they will always be hard on us. One property was disqualified. Not even many, just one. So that thing of the asset register should be as much as possible, 99.9% correct. So that is the second. The third one is around the issue of the ICT ecosystem that we had, the hacking that we had. That was beyond our control. But those issues were found. The prior year issues, the CFO has dealt with those issues, and they won't be repetitive. But we are worried about those two, that they might start with us for a year, and probably in 2027 we'll have cleaned up the system with the support of the DG, because I think it's setting up proper systems to start the process of resolving the ICT infrastructure ecosystem in our department. The second issue that the Honourable has raised is around the funding on delayed projects. We're having a serious problem, Chair. I won't lie. As much as we've got our own problems, that the DG have said is calling all the project managers. We are going to be re-engineering our own system in Sinal. But when it comes to funding of projects, I visited few projects. What I've discovered is that you start a project, we are given funding. Any delay in a project because of variation for 6 months or changes in the scope will attract additional variations. But clients will take 6 to 12 months to approve a variation, because the money does not sit with us, it sits with the client. Like municipalities is better, they are better managed because they received what you call this grant every year. MIG. Yeah. And the mix sit in their coffers. It's registered as a capex. We don't, that money from client department does not sit with us. It sits with the client. If you look at our cash flow budget statement, our cash flow statement, as audited, you will see that there is an overdraft for financing of investment activities, 2.2 billion rand. The money is with the client, it's not with us. So once you change that, as the Honorable Chef said, you at least ring-fence the money, whether it's given to us upfront, 3 months upfront, it could make a huge difference, rather than the money sitting with the client. Where you find an official not cooperating to release and to release the money because it's complaining about another project, not this one. You see, it's complaining about another police station, but not the one that we are building. And for that, they delayed the approval and said, no, public works is failing. We know it's a dynamic organization, it's a complex environment. So these are some of the issues I wanted to emphasize, DG. But I think it will assist really the CFO and the DG myself, who are starting a new campaign to really redevolve the funding allocation back to public works. And then we can account, because we'll be speaking about non-expenditure rather than non-performance without budget. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe let's allow CIDB to respond on the PhDs, because maybe there's a context on their side. Thank you very much, Chair. See you.
Please proceed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, and thank you, Honorable Member, for the question. Yes, I fully agree with you to say, for instance, if academics are left on their own to do the research, sometimes it becomes very difficult to be solving the problems on the ground. Hence, the CIDB has taken this approach to saying we will partner and fund some of these research, and so that we can also influence the topics, and then it becomes us that have to take that research, for instance, into training manuals, or take that research to influence policy. And I'll just make an example with a few. For instance, at the University of Johannesburg, there the focus of that Center of Excellence is around technology and innovation. Hence, we are talking building information management system, how do we automate the procurement systems, and all of that. And also the one at UJ is focusing on many of the issues that you've highlighted, Honorable Member, where we are looking there solely focusing on procurement and development, to saying how do we use the current procurement regime, and we are even testing the Public Procurement Act that is now into place as to say how can it be used more meaningfully for development. For instance, some of the research that we've done, we are looking at issues around what leads to tender cancellations, what are the things that most clients go through. And then when we do our capacitation sessions with infrastructure clients, we highlight that on the administrative side, on the fraud side, what are the issues there. We've done others on, for instance, you'll see one of the research that we've noted here in the presentation talks about infrastructure management and asset management. We had a standard that we CIDB developed, National Infrastructure Management Systems, which requires an update. So to also get what is best practice currently, we also offer these as topics to honors and master's students, so that we can get also as a starting point when we update some of our standards. So yes, you are right. When we leave academia to do it on their own, it does lead to those challenges. Hence, we want to encourage the participation of industry in that, Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, DG. Honourable Kaunda, are you covered? Thank you very much. Honourable Makasini.
Thanks, Chairperson. Let me also welcome both presentation of the department, but I'll start with the department on the financials and the performance percentage that indicates they have a huge drop of 10% from 61% to 2019 and 2020 to 51% in 2023 to 2024. What is the core account? What account for this dropout? If they can just tell us the capacity, whether they do have a capacity that they can meet this target, but it seems as a huge dropout. Then the issue also on administration, on the percentage that they are on 45%. On SMS level of to fill the vacancies, and they say they are aiming to achieve 50%. How are they going to do that to achieve that the 50% that they are aiming to achieve? And the issue are also on the issue on on the slide 2, what the account of the delay on the department of the annual report for the legislature date of the 30th of September 2024. If they can give us what was the delay on that. Then the issue of 51% of 2023 to 2024, what was the step they have taken to ensure that that doesn't happen again? Then the last question is on the CIDB. They say they have 31 clients that they are deemed non-compliance, but they have only penalized only one company. What is happening with other company? If the slide 19, did I read correctly? Because they are 31 clients that are deemed non-compliance, but they penalized only one contractor. So if they can tell us what is the reason of penalizing only one, or did other one finally get it right at the end of the day? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Makasini. DG, thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Maybe let me answer one question, and then I'll allow Lwazi to do the summary on the other questions for the honorable member, and then Setipi will respond last. Maybe on the issue of us not achieving the target on the SMS positions, especially I'll talk about the females. That is basically where the issue is. I think we've taken a stance, or maybe let me just say a posture that says that sometimes when you don't achieve something, there must be a rule that you put. So I'll make an example when people recommend, the panels recommend a mail, as an example, to come for approval because SMS is the responsibility of the minister. Obviously, we do appreciate that people would have gone through a fair process, you know. You find that there's a female, that is number 2, but they recommend a male, you know. So in this instance, where you find such things, you say that until we get a female, we'll appoint. That's basically as simple as that, being stubborn and say, until we get a female, we appoint. I think that is one area that I'm very, very much on it. So we're trying to really push. I must also indicate, Chairperson, that the issue of getting if you like, females is very difficult. Females are very expensive. Those that are very qualified and experienced, most of them are very expensive. You find that a person who's got a BSc degree and a PRN, you know, a professional engineer, and you want to take him, Unilever is already have that person. How do you attract him and call him a director and pay him an SMS salary? Because DPSA will lock you at a minimum sort of base level. In other words, the entry side of the salary. So those are all the things that you still need to also engage. While we do appreciate there's this thing called OSD, still again, you know, the same story. You find that even at also OSD, you can't just put someone into a particular notch. You have to really fight with the DPSA to do so. You must put the motivation, etc., etc. It's quite a lot of issues. So I think that area we will be probably as we move to, because we do send the statistics all the time, to maybe capacitate also the committee around our challenges in that respect so that we can actually get support in respect. Lwazi, thank you, Chair.
Thanks, DG, and thank you for the question. 2 questions. What account for the performance, low performance? That was a question basically. Quite a number of things. I think part of the discussions that we're having in terms of the allocation of budget and us doing work for the clients, that the delays that we experience from the client departments in allocating those funds also affects the period at which we complete within a particular period. For instance, I think Head of PMT, Mr. Sibande, was saying, if it takes 12 months for a client to approve. Now, we had set a target to achieve the target within that year, and then 12 months falls outside that year, then it affects it further. So those are some of the examples we should look at within the construction industry. I think also the issue of the land board affairs as well, that the reconfiguration, the delays, those are also issues that affect. So we plan in the context of achieving certain targets with the assumption that funding will be made available, structures will be made available, but external factors beyond our control also affect the targets because we are the ultimate accountable for those targets as well. So those are some of the challenges that we are experiencing beyond that. Even from an administration point of view, I think from a finance point of view, the issue of compensation of budget, changes in the restrictions from a DPSA as well, putting restrictive measures in terms of appointments. So those are some of the issues that we're dealing that will affect us in terms of achieving the targets. So I think those are some of the areas as well. But also suffice to say, Chair, is that the manner in which we set our targets, we want to be more on service delivery kind of targeting. But when you do have service delivery kind of targeting, you will have limited control over those targets, because largely you are reliant on other stakeholders from a financial point of view, from the client departments, etc. And then it affects the service delivery in that context. But those are some of the issues I think is being discussed in that relation. The second question, in terms of the delays in the submission of the annual or the tabling of the annual report, I'll respond to it in three ways: procedure, context, as well as from a structure point of view. Procedurally, when we submit the annual financial statements and the information, we normally submit that at the end of May for audit purposes, and then that period starts between May and up until July, where we then engage with the Auditor General in response to that. Then the submission or the assessment of the audits and the conclusion of the annual reports normally happens between August and September. Because this is a large organization, we normally do it over that period of August and September, and then table in September. So procedurally, that's how basically what happens is that. Now, we had to invoke section 65.2 of PFMA owing to the fact that we could not submit the annual report. Now, given context, which is the second part, is the fact that the PMTE issues were raised at the later stage by Auditor General, owing to the issues that were raised around the financials that were also affected by the hacking of the, well, not hacking, basically the breach on the system that affected the conclusion of the financial systems, where we ended up doing things on a manual basis, and those are findings that were also made. Then there was a determination by Auditor General that they will conclude the audit on the 20th of September to actually conclude the audit. Now, again, going to the procedure, we normally given a full month after the audit to conclude that process and table. Now, 20 September is when we were supposed to get the full report from AG. And that means that we're already outside the 1 month to conclude the annual report. However, as of the 30th of September, we still had not received the audit report from the Auditor General. So that's basically that's why we invoked the section 65.2 of PFMA. But lastly, from a structure point of view, is that because we're dealing with two entities, the main vote and Public Works and PMTE, now, and it's one annual report, we could not then table just a section of the annual report, which is the main vote, because the PMT was still underway. Hence, we wrote that in that. And then we committed to then submit the annual report at the end of October, after having engaged Auditor General, of which we then were able to then provide that at the end of October, given the audit report that was given to us on the 31st of October by AG. Thanks.
Chair, the CFO just want to have a round on the same question, just to clarify something.
Sure, sure.
Thanks, Chair. Just to add, Chair, we did not submit financial statements on time, so there was a gap of a month even for Auditor General to conclude its work. That was as a result of the system glitch. We then reported that delay. So we submitted financial statements for audit on the 30th of June instead of 31st of May. So there was a 1 month delay, which then affected the audit. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. DG, that's it? Is it?
CIDB.
There's one more for CIBD, huh?
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Chair, and thank you, Honorable Member, for the question. In terms of our investigations, you've mentioned the two parts, the one that are dealing with client departments and the one that are dealing with contractors. In terms of the ones non-compliance, and it's mainly on the register of projects with infrastructure clients, what the main issue there was that we were slightly constrained by the intergovernmental relations in order to be able to, we can't go straight to, for instance, an inquiry with most of the clients. We have to write to them, we have to capacitate them, and many of which, after detection of the non-compliance with the register of projects, then they would register their project. So then we don't take most of these ones further once they're identified. Hence, we put in a high emphasis on the detection. We basically go through all the websites of infrastructure clients to see what projects they are registering as award, and we also compare with the tender portals so that we can be able to know which projects are supposed to be registered with us. In terms of the contractors, the reason why we concluded one case of removal from our register was that the first approach that we took in the previous financial year was to take contractors through the SAPS process. We go and open a case against the contractor, and then hoping that the NPA will take up the case, and then we can find the forgery charges so that we can remove them. But now we have since changed that strategy, where if we have conviction that it's a clear-cut case, we are using Section 19 now of our Act to remove contractors. Hence, we currently have, Chair, I don't know how many cases, probably about 40 cases that are under investigations for removal, direct removal, because we've had a test case where we've removed someone and they've taken us to court over submitting fraudulent documents for registration purposes, and then that they lost that case. So we are very confident with the new approach that we are taking, because we just want to set the culture correct to saying if you fraud documents or you fraud projects, there will be consequences. And we are dealing with quite a few cases also on that. In the report for this financial year, I'm sure more cases will be reflected in terms of dealing with fraudulent registrations, Chairperson, in addition to the other initiatives that we've taken of probity and other items. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, DG. I think that covers it. Are you covered, Honourable Makasini? Yeah? Yes. Honourable Moimang, you've been waiting a long time.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Greetings yourself again and to the team under the stewardship of the DG. Just 3 areas that I want to canvass views from the DG's team. The first one relates to administration. On the target set for percentage of designated groups in SMS. One of the reasons provided is the delay in relation to the provision of accommodation. But also there's also a reference to challenges raised around the sensitivity, around the stigma, which creates a bit of a discomfort because the issue of a compliance report is an area that is of critical importance, and this indicator that has been agreed upon, I think you just need to find a way of dealing with it so that you are able to deal with a discomfort that we have around the reasons given for the underperformance. Because I don't think it's correct that the issue of stigma and lack of flexibility and sensitivity by managers must delay our transformation. I think it's an area that is quite critical. The second one relates to program number 3, the expanded public works program, and also which is important because, as you have correctly pointed out, audit, the AG has also raised an opinion around the missing indicator and around the target. Though the department is a coordinating department, we have set target for ourselves of 5 million, and we have said it has been broken down into an annual target. The question that I want to pose is, given the system that we are introducing to sort of capture this information, will it help us in terms of the 7th administration to improve the setting of this target? Because obviously there was a reason behind a 5 million target, which deals with the issue of unemployment, particularly young people. And obviously, I think it's an area that you need to improve. The last one relates to the target that deals with real estate management services. Particularly the reasons that you advanced around the telecom tower building. The sense that I get is that it is still vacant. Only one floor is occupied. What has to be done to ensure that we maximize the value as government in terms of the money that the amount of investment that we've made in this building? Is it that difficult? Thank you, Chair.
So maybe, thank you for keeping in the time. Maybe we can also, to Telkom Towers, add Leeuwkop Prison, what's happening there. If you don't mind, I think Leeuwkop Prison was also, wasn't safeguarded during construction, and some of the boilers then got damaged, and yeah, it basically led to a lots of money there. So we can maybe get some explanations on that. But carry on. Thank you very much, DG.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairperson. I think let me attempt these questions like this. Loaz will answer the first, the second, and then maybe a portion of Telkom Tower you can touch something because under investigation, and then I'll ask Mr. Sibande, especially on the Telkom Tower, because we've had several meetings, especially with even the Minister of Police, so that he can give a context of what we are thinking around it, and then also the issue of Leeuwkop. Loaz will answer in respect of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you, DG. Thank you. Thank you for the question. On the target of persons with disability, yes, I think I think it was more of a comment, but also in hindsight, something to think about. In the sense that the sensitivity and the approach on persons with disability also has an element in terms of how we advertise. For instance, when you have a deliberate advert that says this is targeted for this, and this is the current approach that the DG has actually instructed in terms of one, persons with disabilities, and two, women in SMS, that instead it will ring-fence certain positions to actually target and improve into that. Obviously, that was based on a practice of saying, look, from an equity point of view, and we are appointing, it's either a female or a male. But then it also resonates with the balance between the equity from an overall departmental perspective vis-a-vis at a unit level. You may find that at a unit level, it's more females than males, but at an institutional equity, it's more males than females. Then it also creates a discrepancy in terms of how we do it. So that's also part of the process of aligning that process to say, overall, they must be moving in that tandem so that then the contribution at a unit level also resonate with the equity aspects within that. The issues of persons with disability, I think it is a sensitive matter in the context of the kind of and the nature of work in the department. Again, let's split it into two. Administration, which is office-bound, but you also have a core, which is the construction. And I think we say, if you're looking at people on site, how then do you look at persons with disabilities, accessibility to site, and all those kind of things? And I think that's basically one of the issues that are under consideration. Now, one aspect that is also under consideration, moving with the 4IR, is the introducing tools such as, for instance, on site you can use drones, which can be also administered by persons with disabilities in a remote area where you can actually do. So those are some of the concepts and considerations that we are also looking at that. But obviously it involves money. Treasury comes into space as well. But I think those are the considerations that we have. But we're also partnering with Department of Women, persons with disabilities as well, to also guide. Because what we've also have now is that we've got a relationship with that department on what you call gender mainstreaming and gender budgeting as well. So we've got these continuous engagements to also guide in terms of the industry practice on how we deal with these matters and become sensitive to that. But also beyond that is awareness of management in the department in relation to being sensitive to these matters, because this is a national target of which it's about equal opportunities that we deal with as well. So I think that's basically, we take the counsel and guidance in terms of how we then incorporate those in the organization. Then the second question on EPWP, the missing target, split into two as well, is obviously the issues about the rationale behind the 5 million or a spread and cut, and the allocation spread and cut across the targets that are cut across from the public bodies or provinces. I think the current challenge now in moving into 7th administration, there was a presentation that, yes, there was I think it was 5.4 million, DG if I'm correct, but there was a cut in the budget. Which has actually reduced it, I think about 3 billion cut in the EPWP, which has actually reduced the number from 5.4 million to 5 million again, back to 5 million because of the treasury cut in the budget. Obviously affects because if you look at the construct of work opportunities and the calculation of what will be the cost per work opportunity, and the cut will then also affect the quantum in terms of the targets as well. So that 3 billion cuts it by that, that 3 billion was a thing. But from a systems point of view, I think it's an issue that is also under consideration in terms of the quality and the credibility of information in terms of reporting and recording that information from a public body. Hence, you've got structures that also deal with technical assistance to public bodies to ensure that there's credible data. And I think that has always been a bone of contention, to look at the credibility of information and the management of the system, particularly from public bodies, when you then correlate what is being reported vis-a-vis the evidence that is being supported. And I think that's the challenge, and that's why we're in this quagmire of how then do we at a national level, being at a coordination level, how do we then report the work opportunities, and that hence we ended up with this finding of just reporting on reports rather than the work opportunities. But then to deal with that, you will see that for the for the 7th administration and in the phase 5, as a section in the APP, maybe through you, Chair, when we presented the APP, we will take you to that section called the Consolidated KPIs, where we have listed all the public bodies, all the reporting public bodies, and the breakdown of those indicators that will then account for the 5 million target for the 7th administration. Thanks, Chair. Sorry, on the telecom tower, I think it was split into two. I will report on the investigation part. It's under investigation in relation to, well, if you look at the scope of it, is basically to say, obviously, what led to that. But beyond just looking for fault, but we're looking at what can we do with the property going forward, and I think that also links with the property optimization strategy. I think that Mr. Sbande will talk to, but that's the issue around it. But all on the Leoko prison is the two things. Obviously, safeguarding of material that resulted in that. We're addressing it as part of the material irregularity, and part of the issue that is at hand now is consequence management to the project manager who actually caused this. That is also underway, unfortunately. At the time when the action or disciplinary measures are to be taken on the project manager by the regional manager, then the regional manager then subsequently resigned, and then you had an acting who's also then has to be au fait with the system, but they are taking action because as of last week they were responding to the action that they are taking on the project manager in relation to the eco-prison as part of and that is part of our continuous engagement and response to Auditor General in terms of the disciplinary action that we're taking in regard to that material irregularity on the eco-prison. Thanks.
Thank you,
Chair. In relation to the proposal going forward for telecom towers, I think, Honourable Member, are correct. It's an indictment that we have purchased a building for almost R1 billion to date, and it is not occupied. The tower that has been occupied, which is a South Tower, has been it's been vacant for the last 5 months due to OHS issues. There was a prohibition notice given by Department of Labour due to HVAC issues that we are currently addressing. However, what has happened, I think the history of telecom towers is known, and there's a shared responsibility and a shared accountability between ourselves and the SAPS. However, we are currently trying to find, through the DG and the Commissioner, an amicable understanding between these two departments to finally co-own that part of accountability. As much as we try, there seems to be misunderstanding of blame shift, which we don't want to enter into, as to who's the major cause of the debacle that led to the dereliction of telecom towers to date. Telecom towers provide a long-term solution in terms of the optimization strategy. It has a floor space of 193 square meters, and it can house 90% of the SAPS accommodation in Pretoria. What we have said is that we can look into a triple P solution, with the private sector coming in to refurbish the building, operate and transfer it back to the department in a period of 15 to 20 years. It depends on the amortization of the cost of the refurbishment. But we've also made an offer to the SAPS to turn the entire precinct, which is the telecom tower, CGO with the 70,000 square meters. That will take the rest of the other part of the SAPS. We have also made available the Public Works House, which is another 40-something thousand square meters for their training and other use. Could be for their barracks or residential. So that all those three buildings can be turned into an SAPS boulevard that is similar to those that you see in the New York and other developed countries. However, the argument is SAPS, they said they don't want to pay any more money into the building. But we are saying no. We don't want any peasant capital outlay. We want commitment to say, once that has been refurbished, will you commit the same amount you are committing in the leases we pay in Pretoria, over 40 million per month, for the lease towards refurbishment? Same amount, you just turn it around. So if we can secure that commitment with Treasury already on the standby to say, if you can give us a business case with the client approving, they will then look at the business case and then agree. That will solve the biggest indictment of our history, if you can secure that kind of a deal. The DG, I trust him. He will pursue his colleague at SAPS. The former minister of SAPS and former minister of Public Works, they had some undertaking to in principle, to agree on that solution. However, there is a new minister in SAPS who has been given a brief to say SAPS, they don't want to do anything with telecom towers at this point in time. That is their position. They presented to the minister. The minister requested time to reflect on that position. But they are paying almost 40 million rand on private leases a month in Pretoria alone, which we can redirect towards what you call ROT, refurbish, operate and transfer the entire boulevard. And we can, over a period of time, nullify those leases. Not overnight, but if you can give ourselves 5 years from now, it's not going to happen, but 5 years to say, in the first 3 years, these leases will expire, but we can agree with the developer that the telecom tower, 3 towers will be ready. Because look, developers are ahead of the curve in terms of development as compared to the state. How they've turned around some of the buildings here in Cape Town, the Silo Hotel, for example. You bring a developer, you say, look, you refurbish, but you also operate. The operating part of it is a juicy, a carrot, but also give us mitigate risk in an event of latent defects. So they're still in charge. Whether there are defects, they are still in charge, they must repair, but it gives them 15 to 20 years. And then we commit in terms of the repayment, refinancing of that particular commitment on their part. And we get a quality asset that the state will, for years, own. The other option on Ticum Towers, if the SAPS are adamant, which I'm not sure why, because they are on private leases, we can then call for the request for proposals on those properties. They are beautiful properties. Call for the private sector to come and call for request for proposal. They can come and repurpose. It could be social housing scheme. It could be office park. But the SAPS solution was the better one because it also brings stability in terms of security in the inner city of Tshwane. And it also enhances inner city generation. You know that area in the inner city is most of the volatile one. And if you can bring the SAPS, it could be better. Thank you. Thank you, teacher.
Okay, DG, thank you very much. I would, first of all, Mr. Mashlangu, I find it ludicrous. So I'm sorry, I'm being crass now. This is the angry me. I find it ludicrous that a reason for underperformance could be sensitivity, lack of flexibility, and stigma to people with disabilities by managers. I sincerely hope that you can tell me that you've acted against those managers that are guilty of this, and how you've used the Employment Equity Act, which is there precisely to stop discrimination against people with disabilities. So please tell us how you've acted against this. And if you can't tell me now, please come back at your next visit and tell me how you've acted against these managers. Because that should be beyond. I don't think we want to see that in the report ever again. DG, I haven't forgotten about the Independent Development Trust of the year. I haven't forgotten about you.
Yeah, Chair, yeah.
I haven't forgotten about you.
In case you want to greet them.
But you've forgotten about us because we haven't received your annual report. And if you don't send me an annual report to give to my members of my committee, we can't prepare in a meaningful engagement. So I can't engage with you if you don't send me a report. So we will invite you back with the permission of the committee to bring us and present us your annual report post haste, and then we'll engage with you. Thank you very much. On Programme 2, the approved sector plan, if I may, I see the revised 5-year sector plan has been implemented. I just want to ask, has the priorities of the government of national unity, the current government, been taken into consideration in this sector plan? That's the one question I have. I'll be very quick because I know I've got to time myself because Honourable Kaunda is watching me. Then just one for CIBD. I've noted, and I'm going to ask the Select Committee to support me in this, that there's some key findings and recommendations with regards to research outputs for an integrated infrastructure delivery model for development economies, the planning and delivery of management activities, and then risk management practices in construction, the global view of that. I'd like to invite you to come to us and present that to us, please. It's something that I think we find very, very interesting. And that's all from me, I think, for the moment. Yeah, thank you very much. I think we're running out of time as well. So, yeah, if you can just answer those, they'll be happy. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Chair. Through you, TG.
Okay. Sorry.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I think we'll take a bait on providing the report on the issues around the insensitivity issues. I think we'll provide that. On the issue of sector plan, whether they've considered the 7th administration, Chair, yes, the approach that we've taken basically is breaking it from the statement of intent. The 3 priorities from the statement of intent, inclusivity, growth, as well as a capable state. We've developed the outcomes and the priorities basically driven by the Minister of Public Works under the mission of turning South Africa into a construction site. And then that has been broken down in terms of the provinces, because some provinces have already assumed that posture of turning certain provinces into a construction site. And then that then helps us to develop the 4 critical outcomes or priorities of infrastructure-led South Africa, or infrastructure-led growth, public goods for our public assets for public good, and transparency and ethical conduct within the public sector, as well as reforms in EPWP. Those are the issues that are basically being done. And what we've also done is a transition between from the 6 to 7 administration to have that seamless approach within the mandate of public works from national, provinces, as well as, so yes, Chair, those have been considered in that context. Thanks.
Great, thank you very much. That takes care of the business of the day. I'd like to thank the Department of Public Works, PMTE. Thank you very much for your reporting today, and also to CIDB. Honourable members, we've been through the reports, you've asked questions. These reports are just for noting. Could I just then ask for a proposer for the noting of the reports, please? Thank you, Honourable Skeerkogel, and a seconder. For the noting? You object. You object in the 6th administration, basically. Thank you, Honourable Kahunda. Then I would just like to, and I'm sorry, I'm going to have to put you through this. We're just quickly going to adopt the minutes of the previous meeting, because if I have to wait for you to leave the room now, we're going to run out of time. So if you just bear with me. But I'd like to say thank you very, very much for your attendance today, and thank you for presenting to us. I think as the time goes by, our understanding of the complexities of your issues will grow, and we'll be able to support you as a committee. Honourable members, the draft minutes of the Select Committee on Public Infrastructure and Minister in the Presidency for the 30th of October has been presented to you, albeit not so timeously. But let us attempt to adopt these minutes, if you do not mind. This was the presentation on the 6th Administration Legacy Report, considering the Select Committee and the consideration of our Select Committee Annual Performance Plan. Are there any issues under the attendance? Thank you very much. We'll move on to page 2. Are there any issues under page 2? Thank you very much. Are there any issues on page 3? Thank you. Any issues on page 4? Great. Thank you very much. Can I ask for a proposer? Thank you very much, Honourable Muyimang. Seconder? Thank you very much, Honourable Skaunda. Minutes duly adopted. Thank you for your attention in that. And then if I can just once again thank the department, thanks our committee for your questions today, and for your participation. And then a big thank you to our staff for everything you've done today, specifically Mr. Ntalini, who's done the impossible. He's actually found us a physical room to meet in, which is amazing. It's like finding a needle in a haystack in Parliament. I keep on saying to our counterparts in the National Assembly, go and find your own places to meet. The NCOP hasn't burned down. We've still got our own house. But they keep on using our properties. Maybe we should get the PMT involved here. They keep on using our property for their meetings instead of us being able to use our own meeting room. So it's really we're really appreciative of that. Thank you very much. I just and this is also to do with CIDB, Mr. Ben. You've done some research on the cost of taking our whole committee to Durban on the 19th. Can you just quickly give us a rundown of what the cost would be, whether there's money to do it, and whether there's alternatives to the whole committee going? Thanks.
Good afternoon, Chair. Looking at the budget, Chair-ish, we're skating on thin
ice. You sound like them.
Yes, Chair, and it's only for 1 day, Chairperson, because members would be expected to leave on Monday and return the Tuesday. So I think the total cost, it would be around in the region of close to 100,000 6,000, if I'm not mistaken. But if we can take another alternative decision, maybe to send 2 members, that can also work, or the chair. I don't know, the ball is in your court, Chair. Thank you.
Honourable members, we had the same conversation yesterday in Honourable Kahunda's meeting with regards to going to Johannesburg to meet the MECs. Let me just lay the groundwork here. It's obviously not viable to send the whole committee for many reasons. The one reason is we have a very busy schedule. We've got debates that week, and we need your presence in the House for those debates. I think Chief Whip will agree with me there. And then obviously cost. And let me be frank, I would prefer if we just send one person, being me, because sending 2 people will cost double than sending me. And if it will help the committee, I'm happy to use one of my entitlements of flights to pay for the cost. So it will just be the hotel accommodation for the one night, the transfers to and from the airport, and maybe something to eat if I could. Honourable Kahunda, have you got something to say?
Yeah, Chair, I wanted to propose you, but you have proposed yourself. Now, I don't know what to do as a chair. But Chair is fine. Let's say the chair will represent us, but there is a good hotel in eThekwini called Butterworth Hotel. So you can sleep over there. I think the costs are very reasonable. Thank you.
So is that the formal proposal that the committee sends me to Durban? Let's just take the Butterworth Hotel out of it. Is there a seconder for that? Shall I dare ask for a seconder for that proposal? Thank you very much. Duly adopted. I'm going to decline your kind invitation for that Pacific Hotel, but I'm sure we can find suitable accommodation along the way. Honourable members, thank you so much for your attendance today and for the department and for the staff. Much appreciated. It is now 8 minutes to 1 o'clock, and I'd like to declare this meeting closed. Thank you very much.